Today we're doing something that we very rarely do here on this channel, and that is a first impressions video. And that's because yesterday in the mail, these 3 boxes from Non-Human Audio showed up. And I am really excited to dig into these. And at this point, I want to say that Non-Human Audio doesn't know I'm making this video, and it's not why he sent the pedals out. I think the actual plan is to maybe figure out a place for them somewhere down the road. I'm just here jumping the gun, doing a first impressions video because I'm really excited to hear these pedals. But before we get into it, let me explain to you why I'm so excited to get into this. Non-Human Audio is a company out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, from a guy named Dave Jordan, who has really made a splash into something of a rising star in this industry over the last year and a half or so. He found a lot of his success in his slow loris modulation pedal. And if you're somehow not familiar with the slow loris, you might be familiar with the Benson Florist pedal, which is Benson's collaboration with Non-Human Audio, basically expanding out what the Loris does into a larger format. My actual first exposure to the Non-Human stuff was the slow Loris, but not in a demo anywhere or not having heard it somewhere, but at the Chase Bliss anniversary party in Minneapolis last year, where Andy Othling walked up to me and just held the pedal in front of me and said, "Have you heard this thing before? It's awesome." So a ton of credit to Andy for that moment, but also only partial credit because I didn't get to hear it that weekend. Time goes by and I finally got to meet Dave at NAMM this year at the Effector Market kind of NAMM sideshow thing that happens. And we spent a good amount of time talking about how he got started in the industry, the kind of success that he's found with the slow loris, as well as some of the other stuff he has on offer. Here we are about a month and a half later now, and I just received 3 pedals from Non-Human Audio. And so we're just gonna open them up and give them a listen for the first time in this video. These arrived yesterday. I have not plugged them in yet. You're going to hear these sounds as I dial them for the first time. And so fittingly, let's go ahead and start things off with the slow loris. This is the slow loris, and according to the manual, this is a modulated slapback delay that responds to your playing dynamics. So based on kind of what I have heard from other people and what limited kind of sound samples I've heard from other creators who have used and advocated for the slow loris, it's basically your playing dynamics changes the speed of a modulated slapback delay, a pretty lo-fi sound at that, to kind of create modulation and movement in response to how hard you dig into this pedal, which tells me early in chain, which is always fun when it comes to modulation. Next up, we have the pedal that I am kind of secretly the most excited to dig into in this video, and that is the Unclean. So let's open it up. So right off the bat, obviously there's a kind of shared motif for design elements on all these pedals. The Unclean is my favorite looking one. I like the color choice, this kind of splattered orange on here, I'm really obsessed with. And the kind of like stenciling of it on here, it's quite nice. According to the manual, the Unclean is a cascading dual distortion. So basically volume distortion 1 that feeds into distortion 2, and then a resonance control that is less of a tone knob and apparently more of a low end cut. So I guess you can kind of tighten up the low end for more modern sounds, might be useful for neck pickup stuff or more angular playing when you want to leave more space for like bass and kick drum underneath in your mix. Let's give it a listen. And last up, we have the pedal with the coolest name of all three of these, in my opinion, the Night Creatures. I shouldn't have thrown that box. I need the manual back. Okay, so this is a vibe. So according to the manual, the Night Creatures is a dual delay where you have a mix knob in the center, a kind of balance knob that blends between the two delay lines, and then basically just time and feedback for two separate delays. I'm not sure. I assume that they don't interact with each other based on the manual, but I guess we'll find out. Based on the kind of lo-fi murkiness of the Slow Loris, I'm very curious to hear kind of what the Night Creatures does. So we did call this a first impressions video, so we should probably give some first impressions. First up, we have the slow loris, which I get why this is the flagship. I get why this being a first or early offering from a company would really serve to put them on the map, especially in the context that it was shown to me first by somebody like Andy Othling, where when you plug this in by itself, it's cool and you can see the vision, but it really starts to come into its own in a more robust ecosystem. It's a little bit reminiscent of something like the Shallow Water by Fairfield Circuitry, but in the sense that it's kind of one of those effects that in the context of a more conventional pedal board where your clean guitar is kind of snaking through all of your other drives and compressors and wet effects and still sounds very much like a guitar in that context. Something like the slow loris kind of seeks to blur the center point of your sound. It's the kind of thing that obfuscates the attack, that adds some uncertainty to what the note is and to where the note is coming from. And for the use cases that this will be appropriate, which for some are legion and for somebody like me are going to be kind of more specific and more prescriptive, this feels like a why did it take me so long kind of device, because God damn it, that sounds good. And speaking of sounding good, the Unclean deserves to be on more boards than it is, even from this kind of very, very brief look at it. Those two gain stages are well tuned in their own rights, offer good amounts of gain separately from one another, but they stack really well. And that resonance control that allows you to kind of like scoop out the exact right amount of low end to kind of add clarity without brightening your signal. And for a device like this to not have a conventional tone control and never feel either too flabby or too brittle or sharp or harsh at the high end is really shockingly impressive. Also, this is the best looking finish of the three of them in my opinion. I am deeply obsessed with that orange and black combination on here. Actually, one second. I'm so smitten with it that we're doing the rest of the video with an inspired room vibe based on it. There we go. We're matching now. I like the clear delineation of a slightly brighter and more angular distortion circuit and a slightly warmer, bassier distortion circuit. They stack together well. That low-end cut does exactly what you need it to. And it feels like the volume is well tuned for a pedal like this, allowing you to blow up an amp or do something like we did during the kind of roundup at the end there, where we put this in front of the slow loris so that we could get more movement and more consistency and more chaos a little bit out of the loris, and to be able to kind of push some of those gain settings higher without feeling like we're just going to blow the loris up by default, basically, shows that the Unclean is a surprisingly versatile drive. I also think it's well labeled. And last but not least, the Night Creatures, which, as you heard from those kind of roundup section, gave us something approximating internal oscillation in a way when you put more volume into it. But on its own, it feels like maybe this is just an input gain issue with the Jazzmaster I was using. It feels like you can't get to a runaway oscillation thing in the Night Creatures by itself, which is a little bit of a bummer because I think long, flowing, kind of murky beds that just kind of churn forever would be really cool for a device like this. But for a dual PT2399 delay, which is what I believe this is, I am pretty smitten with the combination of simplicity and darkness of it. You are not going to get conventional dotted eighths. You're not going to get a bunch of like rhythmic stuff out of this, but the ability to take a fairly long and an even longer delay, that longer one having a lot of really well-tuned white noise in it, really brings me a lot of joy. I really think that this is another one, as you heard, much like the slow loris, is best served in a larger context. I think it is the kind of device that sits in between your kind of rhythmic delay and your kind of super wide, very clean reverb, something with a lot of clarity of reverb trail. And this thing is there to add that little bit of warble and darkness and resonance and menace that sometimes our guitar boards need. And by the way, that kind of synth intro that I recorded after all of our guitar playing and right before sitting down right now, I spent a little bit of time getting the two delays to kind of serve as a quarter note and a half note effectively for that ARP as it played. For a very clean synthesizer to run into something like this is to give it a lot of character. If I make a synth board for something like my replay, I should build a synth board. This is going on it because this is the kind of fuzziness and unpredictability and kind of lack of focus that I want when I'm adding music bed stuff before I go to a stereo field. So once more to Non-Human Audio, thank you for sending these out. You didn't know I was gonna make this video, you just wanted me to check them out, and I appreciate that, but I've heard so many good things about these pedals that I just wanted to trial out them on camera because I had a feeling they would be cool. And I sure am happy that I was correct on that front. The neighbor's getting loud, we're gonna cut. Till next time.